It really is a blessing just being able to have one whole month focusing 100% of your attention just on plot. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of an absolutely monumentally critical series. Its sole purpose being to judge and give hentai the label sauce or loss. I've got some old stuff and a lot of newer stuff, but my main goal for the whole draw was just to kind of pick more infamous titles from the less recent side of things and basically stick to a lot of noteworthy new selections. So with this, let me know if you have any titles you would like to see in the next video. Any and all welcome. Let's begin. Alright, so the first pick I have for you today is Kyonyu Fantasy. So this is actually like an OVA based on a game made by Waffle. So basically the story is that there's this guy named Ryuto who is basically like a soldier with, he gets pretty lucky. Alright, and he's assigned to this basically like this little kingdom where there is some kind of monster who's like basically drying up the men into complete prunes. And later on he does some other things, but that part's not very important to me. This came out May 25th, 2012, and lasted with, I think, a couple more episodes down to July 27th, 2012. And, this one's kind of a mixed bag, gonna be real with you. They're all mixed bags, but this one's kind of a special case. Mainly because the first half is really good. The whole part of finding out the monster and why these men are being absolutely wrung dry. It's the same with the second episode. As soon as it happens to go over to like the first lady, or the princess, it starts to go downhill for me. I'm gonna be real with you. So I'm gonna give this one a bit of a sauce. And you know what? We're gonna say this is B tier. This is pretty good. Alright, the title of this one kind of makes me cringe, but I'm just gonna say this is called Shigokare. So this one also came from a visual novel source, but basically there's this guy, this college student, who became really sick. He recovered from it, but he had to take off of school, and he's quite slacking. So now he basically has like 3 different tutors, right? And they're all his age, and he just ends up getting with every single one of them. So this one's fairly recent, October 24th, 2019. This one is not too bad, but it has its problems. It's good. But the problem is that the story is so minimal, it like fails to hook me. I mean, the art is good, everything visually is appeasing, but it just feels extremely rushed. Nothing is really connected. It's like 3 different chapters of a story, but you just kind of slap them together. I don't know, there's it flows, I guess, but it's very rushed, so it looks like we have our second sauce of the day, but honestly, this is kind of rushed, so I'm gonna give this a C tier. Alright, our third pick for the day is probably gonna be one of the most controversial ones on this list, Euphoria. So this is a game that came out on June 24th, 2011. Some people worship this, and some people leave with PTSD. I'm kind of in the middle about it. I do kind of end up regretting watching this more than anything. Basically, we got this guy who, he wakes up in a white room. He can't remember anything. And while he's kind of searching around, he notices 6 girls huddled around a large monitor. And he knows all of them. Some of them are teachers, some of them are class presidents, some are classmates. And then suddenly, the game will now begin. Basically what this guy has to do is he has to use each of the girls in a very specific manner, and basically this ends up as rape, torture, and not a good time. But I will say the description on MAL leaves it with this. Left with no other option, the terrified captives concede, and thus begins the sadistic game that will awaken their carnal desires through pain and pleasure. So, honestly, the concept of this one and everything about its story, I think is really good. But this is one of those ones where you're so focused around, I guess, the horror of it, you can't really appreciate anything else. Honestly, it comes off as just kind of horrific. And I mean, that's kind of the point, but hot damn, you definitely don't see shit like this anymore. And that is kind of one of the only things that makes me want to say that this is sauce and pretty based. But for the reason that I kind of don't want to remember it at the same time, I'm going to have to give this one a loss, first loss of the day. But I will say this is pretty based. I do recommend experiencing it. But be warned, you are not going to have a very good time. You never know. Some people are into this. A lot of people are not. Moving on. Alright, my fourth pick for you today is one of the first hentai I think I've ever seen. And that's kind of surprising because this one came out in 2014, so I should say this is probably the first, like, quote-unquote memorable one. This is a gem called Swing Out Sisters, and as you can imagine from the title, you could probably guess what this is about. Yuta has always been close to his elder sisters, Chiyo and Chinatsu, and he's really the only guy living in his household, so he's kind of being raised by his sisters. And there's this weird trio dynamic that's going on here in the household. So basically Yuta has kind of fallen in love with Chiyo, the eldest sister, who's kind of like the mother, and needless to say, she is absolutely swept away with her younger brother. But seeing this, the other sister, the younger sister, Chinatsu, is kind of the tsundere type, and she sees this, she is absolutely shattered, and she kind of starts wanting his attention more and getting more dominant towards him as a kind of like tomboy type. And she kind of just starts making very aggressive sexual advances. And as things kind of start to change with both school and private life and other things, it turns into a very quick dumpster fire. There's no way I'm not giving this one a sauce rating. And honestly, I think I would pin this one as A tier. Maybe like A- tier. It's not the best, but there's a lot about it that doesn't scream bad, and I think that's what kind of puts this one where it is. It has its faults, but its faults aren't so bad to bring it down any. Alright, so this next one is kind of a tough one for me, and both trying to say its name and trying to describe this. This one is Ikkyo Nyukan. I think that's how you say it. But as we will learn soon enough, the company Queen Bee has kind of built up a reputation for ruining perfectly saucy doujins, and luckily this is one of their okay results. Their animation is horrible. Like they somehow, the moment they even like consider something, they already make it like 10 times worse. And like I said, this one's an okay result. The story is kind of typical for me, but it's about this guy basically getting abducted by a bunch of girls to become like the tennis club supervisor. Soon to find out, it's literally just a massive harem. It's 4 episodes long. I mean, it's watchable. This is kind of one of those ones you wish it stayed like, I don't know, like a doujin series or something. But I'm pretty sure this is like one of the few series that's keeping Queen Bee hanging on. Other than the fact that they seem to be the one company that's still actually releasing things avidly. Because, I mean, this wasn't terribly old. This was October 20th, 2017. And the last episode came out on June 22nd, 2018. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to label this one as a loss, but kind of a soft loss. We're going to give this the C- tier scale of things. So, brimming. Now, if I had the choice between this and something else, I would probably pick something else. Doesn't matter. I would rather watch Euphoria. Yariman Fudo-san. Boy, oh boy, do we have an interesting one here. So this is actually about a real estate company that resides in a small, kind of nondescript office building where this typical real estate guy works. Nothing really sticks out about him. He's kind of a typical guy, and honestly, I'd like to know this man. He seems to be kind of straightforward, but basically every day he has to deal with pretty sketchy people and his really perverted boss. When they go to collect rent, they kind of have to make small pit stops. Because his boss kind of has a fetish to have sex in other people's homes. Specifically ones that can't pay their rent for some reason, or ones where there seems to be a lot of like gossip going down. And the last line on MAL's description is, with his salary being so low and his boss sucking him dry, will he make it? This was released April 4th, 2014 and lasted about 2 months, which it made a second episode, which I think was June 6th. And like I said, I appreciate how the story kind of like revolved around a real estate company. I feel like that's something you actually see in regular porn nowadays and not hentai. But I do wish the story delved a bit deeper into like the boss's life a little bit more and not just her addictions. This hits different. So we're gonna have to label this one as sauce, and I'm gonna give this probably a B tier. So for this one we have Heartful Maman. And I actually really like the concept for this one. So Mao is an ordinary high schooler guy. He kind of has a rough family history. His mom died when he was just a little kid. He kind of had to live with his dad, who basically raised him alone since then. And because of this lack of a mother's side to his parents' relationship, Mao kind of stayed away from women his whole life. And he kind of developed this kind of phobia until suddenly his dad remarries. Basically, his new stepmom kind of talked to his dad about trying to unlock Mao a little bit, and maybe a little too much. This one's kind of a Freudian trip a little bit. I like that concept. I feel like this one really did hit different, and it hit it right on the nail. And this was back in October 27th, 2017. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this is a very peppered experience, but there is just one thing. I think that a visual novel is okay for this one. That's the source material. But I think that this would make an outstanding doujin manga if they kept the animation art style. So we're going to say that this is sauce, but I'm going to go ahead and label this as B tier. I think that this would work better as a doujin. If it was, I feel like that would be more A tier. But as is, it brushes the surface, but there's something missing. So this next one kind of carries my hopes of more sauce in times of desperation, and is quite solid proof that good sauce can still happen. Uwaki to Honki. Basically, this guy finds out that his girlfriend was cheating on him, and kind of in the bright of day too. He sees this, and he decides to start going out with his friend, whose partner also cheated on her. So this is probably one of the newest ones on this list. I think there might be one more that could be newer. This came out September 26th, 2020, and I gotta say, this is a strong sauce. This almost brims A tier. I don't even know where to draw the line on this one, because it's really good. It's really good. But this is a definite crucial moment for 2020, I feel like, in the industry, and is living proof that good sauce is still in production. Alright, originally I was not going to put this one in. I was actually going to save this for a later episode, because this one's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid, and I feel like this one is kind of like a monumental moment to be seen in any ranking list. But we're going to go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid. Our next pick is Boku no Pico. So if you've never heard of this before, basically there's this little boy named Pico who works at his grandfather's cafe, and there's also this other guy named Tamatsu who's like this regular white-collar worker who's trying to look for an escape from the mundanity of his everyday life. Now hold up just 1 second. Most people, when they're feeling bored or going through a midlife crisis, they go skydiving. They reconnect with family. They sometimes make a family. Buy a house. But what does this guy decide to do? Basically hooks up with a little boy. Like, who? Who would think that investing your money in this is a good idea? Don't get me wrong, people made this. Someone did the writing for this, and I will say that's like the one thing that I can appreciate is some good writing, and the animation's not bad either. But what the hell? So this is going to be our last loss of the day. And as for tier, I don't even think this reaches the minimum for a tier ranking.
I would rather run my dick through a bandsaw.